Yeah, okay, awesome. Thank you so much for for the intro and for inviting me to talk today. I'm super excited to be here. So yeah, my name's Dana. I'm just gonna start with like a little intro about me, and I made a little presentation for you guys because I love, first of all, I love presentations. I love PowerPoints. I don't know why, but so I made one for you guys. Yeah, something about it. It's like really fun for me. So I'm gonna share my screen. And let's see, share screen, desktop. Okay. Let's see. All right, here we go. So I'm just going to start some little photos of me so I can tell you guys about myself. Okay, so basically I started playing rugby. I'm from Doylestown, Pennsylvania, which is like about an hour north of Philly. And I started playing rugby when I was in 8th grade, fell in love with it. That picture in the top left is one of my first games in the rain with my best friend. Rugby has always provided that sort of community for me, and I just, every team I've ever played for, like immediate friendships. And so I'm just like very grateful for that. And so I fell in love with rugby pretty quickly. And after high school, I moved out to Southern California for college at Pitzer College. It's one of the Claremont colleges, which they weren't known for their rugby team at all whatsoever. But I wanted to go to school for my academics over rugby because I didn't really know if I wanted to pursue rugby completely as a career yet. And I just like wanted to go to school for school, but I really had hoped that there was a rugby team, and there was. That's the Foxes on the right in the red. That was my college team. And we actually ended up doing pretty well, moved up to D2, and we got to the national championship, but lost in that national championship my junior year. So I ended up playing rugby there, and I took one summer to train at what's called the American Rugby Professional Training Center because I really wanted to take my training to the next level. And I hadn't really gotten to do that at school because I didn't have a big rugby school where there's like a lot of school support and a lot of resources. So we just like didn't have those resources. And I wanted to experience that high level performance training environment. So I went there for a summer. And that's where you play called sevens, which is kind of like a different form of rugby that they play in the Olympics. And that was my first high intensity training environment where we were training 2 or 3 times a day. It was hot. It was Arkansas in the summer, so it was like 90 degrees. And I was just pushing my body way more than I ever had before. And it was exciting. It was hard. It was very challenging. But I was really excited to bring everything that I had learned there back to my team, back into Claremont, because I had one more season left with them. I was going into my senior year. And so I was super, super excited. And then at Club Nationals, which is like the highest level of sevens in the US below the national team, I ended up tearing my ACL. And this was the second time that I tore my ACL. So the first one I tore my freshman year of college. And I didn't really know what it meant to tear your ACL. So I was kind of like, like, okay, this happened. I've never really been seriously injured before. So I kind of like bounced back relatively quickly with that because that was my first real injury. So I was like, okay, I play rugby, like this is going to happen. But with the second one, it was really, really hard for me because these are the pictures bottom left of my first ACL surgery and my second ACL surgery. And so it was devastating. I mean, I had trained all summer really, really hard. I was super excited because I felt that I had improved a lot from all the work I'd been putting in, and I wanted to show that to my teammates and my coaches back at school. And it was right before my senior season. So it was really, really hard. And like I got back to school as my first month senior year, and I had surgery there. And just sort of like fell into this depression because I had been missing out on my senior season. And although I like couldn't play, I did show up to all the practices and I was still there. And thankfully the coaches let me kind of coach as well. So they knew that I wanted to have a part in the team like so badly. And so they let me help out a little bit. And I remember it just being really difficult because it's senior year. I had 5 classes. I had an internship. I had physical therapy. It was just a lot going on at one time. And, you know, I know that like I'm sure people who've been through injuries know how hard it is as an athlete to be kind of sidelined, which is what's going on right now, where we're all kind of stuck without our sport, our typical outlet. And I just kept pushing on. I kept showing up to my my physical therapy. I did my physical therapy exercises. I went to class and I did my internship. I showed up to things that I really did not want to show up for. You know, you just sometimes have to push through like that. And so that kind of like allowed me to reflect on mindset and how much rugby has taught me and sports have taught me to persevere. And so what ended up happening was after continuously working, and you know, I was drinking like turmeric lattes hoping that it would help with the swelling. I was just doing anything possible to try and heal as quickly as I could, and get back on the field again, you know, because watching my teammates play, I was there. I wanted to get out there so badly. So then I ended up getting back 5 months and 28 days post surgery, which is incredibly early for an ACL injury, and especially with rugby, because full contact, you're being hit. So I was terrified. I was like, tape this thing up, and I'm going out there, because it was my it was playoffs, so it was my last chance to really get to play with the team my senior year. And so I got to play in the playoff game. My first hit, I got back up again, and I was like, okay, we're out here. I'm doing okay. And then I ended up getting selected for Collegiate All-American that summer. And so that was 10 months post ACL surgery. I was at a level higher than I've ever been before. And I got to play against WPL All-Stars out in Colorado, which WPL is the Women's Premier League. And that's the highest level of women's rugby 15s in the US, and that's where the national team players are playing. So I was playing against national team players. And so let's see my next one. So that's where I then met the coach of the New York WPL team, and I talked to her about playing. So then I got home and ended up playing with New York Rugby, which is on the team on the right here. And I kind of got inspired to spread that. I just wanted that community, that mindset, that resiliency to be talked about more, and kind of like create a space where people can inspire each other and support each other. And so I started Go Forward Fitness after I got my strength and conditioning specialist certification. And this is brand new, so I'm still like very much in the making of it, still working on the website and everything. I put the Instagram handle there if you guys want to check it out, but basically it's for personal training, strength and conditioning training. And I wanted to provide resources for people who were like me in college, who didn't have those resources. Like I tore both my ACLs. I didn't have a strength and conditioning trainer. I didn't have any sort of trainer at college to do injury prevention exercises or like properly train my body for rugby. And so I wanted to make that more accessible for people. So I'm actually coaching my college team now this season, which is really awesome. But yeah, so I started that, and I just kind of got really into mindset, resiliency, and I've been using this quarantine time to kind of read a lot of different books and study mindset when it comes to on the field and off the field, and how those translate, and reflecting on my experience with my ACL, and reflecting on like games played and big games and my mindset there. And so that's why today I'm going to talk about 3 major lessons in mindset. And this is my favorite book on mindset that I've read. It's called Mind Gym. I really recommend it to all of you. It's a phenomenal book if you're looking to take yourself to the next level. And just in general, I think that like a lot of our mindset as athletes translates to off the field as well in your other pursuits. So I just really recommend this book. So the first lesson that I want to talk about is nurturing a growth mindset. And this is an idea that I got from Carol Dweck. And she has a book called Mindset. So that's why I put that picture up there of that. And basically she talks about fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. And the fixed mindset is believing that your human qualities are fixed, so they cannot be changed. So you're born either talented or not talented. You're naturally athletic, or you're naturally artistic, or and there's no really changing that. And then there's the idea of the growth mindset, which is human qualities are cultivated through effort. So we can change things about ourselves, whether that's personality, athletic ability, intelligence, music, art, anything. If you work at it, you're going to get better. And with the growth mindset, you kind of believe in this, that challenges are good. You believe in the effort. You believe you keep going. You have that resiliency in the face of setbacks. Whereas with the fixed mindset, you think, okay, if I have to put this effort in, it means I'm not good enough. And you start questioning yourself rather than being like, okay, this is a challenge. How can I push back at this challenge? How can I get through? And I think this is just really applicable in sports and in life as well. And this is something that she talked about. She did a study with mindset and depression and found that, obviously it's very difficult for anybody to go through depression, but she did find that with the growth mindset, the more depressed people with the growth mindset felt, the more they took action to confront their problems, the more they made sure to keep up with their schoolwork, and the more they kept up with their lives. The worse they felt, the more determined they became. And so she found that the fixed mindset people were more like fixated on their setbacks and, complaining about their problems and the challenges, and it took them longer to bounce back from depression. Whereas with growth mindset, they kind of just put themselves in a better place, that when that feeling finally passed, they were still at a good place with their lives. They were still pushing forward. And I thought this was applicable to my state after my ACL surgery, being like just having a very difficult time, honestly. But being proud of continuing to go up and go to my internship and go to practice and do my physical therapy exercises that were so annoying because they were just so little. Like I was literally just sitting there flexing my quad for like 10 minutes, or trying to flex my quad because the muscle was still trying to get back. So just those little things, and just trying to keep your head up and know that better days are ahead. And this also is with the growth mindset, different perspectives of failure. So she talks about this idea that failure has gone from an action, I failed, to an identity, I am a failure. And this is kind of like a society thing as well, where we're starting to see people are more like, I am a failure, rather than thinking, okay, I failed with this, but I will push forward, I will improve, I will work harder, I'll try something different. And so the growth mindset sees setbacks as motivating and informative. It's a learning point. It's just another way that like you can fix what you're trying to do. And then she talks about this idea of growth mindset having no concept of failure. So I just wanted to hear from you guys, like, what would that mean, and what would that look like, having no concept of failure?
I guess for me, like if you have a growth mindset, then you're always like the idea of a failure is actually something that is going to help you and help you grow. And it's something that's actually kind of a good thing in the sense that it can further your goals. So if it's like a helpful thing, it's not really that you're like failing at it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Awesome. Does anyone have anything else they want to add to that? If not, I will continue. I would also say, with no concept of failure, there's no shame of being wrong. There's no embarrassment of being wrong. Simple things: answering a question in class, answering a coach when he or she is saying, okay, like what does this mean? You're not afraid to be like, oh, like say your answer, and if you're wrong, it's okay. No shame, no embarrassment, no concept of failure. I think that's something very special that I personally haven't really thought about before. And if you have no concept of failure, you're going to take risks, right? Because you're not afraid. You're like, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. So that was one thing that I thought was a good point that she made. And this idea of no concept of failure, I'd like to carry that. Whereas the fixed mindset, you always try and find somewhere to put the blame, whether that's the ref, that's the weather conditions, the, like when it has to do with sports, or whether it's, oh, someone else, like it was their fault, always trying to put that blame on someone else for your situation. And then also this idea of my success is your failure, meaning that your friend like did something really awesome, scored a winning shot, and you're like, oh, they scored the winning shot, like I didn't, you know, making it, okay, they did something really good, that means I'm a failure, where that's not true. And really surrounding yourself with people who are excited about your successes and you're excited about their successes, supporting the people in your life, like, okay, you did something awesome, that's amazing, I'm so happy for you, and I'm going to learn and grow with you. And instead of this idea of like you did something really good and you get that jealousy, or that like, okay, you're doing this, what am I doing, that comparison. So that was my spiel about growth mindset and how important that I believe that is with your mindset. And the second is to be gritty. And now this idea comes from Angela Duckworth, where she's a psychologist and she studies grit, which is the tendency to sustain interest in and effort toward very long-term goals. And so she talks about this combination of passion and perseverance and resiliency in the face of setbacks, which obviously this also relates to Carol Dweck's growth mindset. And she references her a lot in her book, but always trying to improve, learn, and grow. And so I wanted to ask you guys, like, why does it matter? Why do you think being gritty matters?
For me, I guess like the idea of being gritty and always wanting to like improve and learn and grow kind of reminds me of just having kind of mental toughness. And I think that's kind of how you kind of push yourself past just being like, especially in sports, just like physically tired or something like that, but really pushing yourself because of almost like the mental game of it, and always wanting to push yourself to your goals and kind of recognizing those goals, and um, I guess just kind of being tough and gritty, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Does anyone have anything else? Why does being gritty matter?
Yeah, for me, this is definitely one of the things that I try and focus on. But what I always find myself focusing on when I need concentration and grit is just potential success rather than the potential failure, because there's always more to be gained than there's to be lost, in my opinion.
I love that. Yeah, that's awesome. Anyone else want to chime in? You can also chat it if you're shy. But there are no wrong answers here. No concept of failure. Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. For me, I think being gritty like is something that I would I would be proud of those moments of grit, or those moments of resiliency. I like to look back and think, of course I have moments where maybe I could have been more resilient, but when I look back at my life, I'm proud of those resilient moments and those resilient times. And so that's something that I want to be and I want to embody, is someone who's gritty. And also, so for her book, she uses this as a predictor of achievement. So grit has been shown to be kind of this predictor of high achievement in your life, whether it's sports, like science, like theater, whatever it may be. That's what she used. And she also used it in, like, I want to say Navy SEAL training. That might be wrong, but it's something like that. And so I also said, let's see, that emphasis here on the passion, for the combination of passion and perseverance, because to me that's where your well-being and your happiness resides, is that if this is something that you're passionate about, you push for it, it's something that you love, and that's what drives your perseverance, that's what drives your resiliency. It's your love for whatever you're passionate about. Like for me, what drove me to do my physical therapy was the thought of being on the rugby field again. And that thought just made me so excited that I remember being in physical therapy and then them telling me I can run for the first time, and I'm on the treadmill smiling super big, looking at my PT aides being like, you see me? Like, do you see me over here running? I was just so happy. And that passion and that love is kind of what I think will also motivate you to have that grit and keep interest in an effort toward those long-term goals. So yeah, that's why I think it matters, but I think that it's very important to have both. And she references this from her research. Talent times effort equals skill. Skill times effort equals achievement. And I love this because it shows you that effort counts twice. And we have this in society, we love this idea of talent, this innate ability that someone was born with, when it's really, effort matters. Effort counts twice. And we forget that these people are working so hard behind the scenes. Oh, whoa, go back. Okay. So, so I think like seeing this kind of reminded me the work that you're putting in is valuable, and the work that you're putting in counts. And other people might try to say like, oh, he's so talented, she's so talented. But to me, like, we forget about all the hard work, all the hours put in that really goes behind someone's success and someone's achievement. It's that they persevered. It's that they faced challenges, they faced setbacks, and they kept going and they kept putting in that effort. And that's what brought them to where they are, not just this innate ability that they were born with. And of course, people are born with different abilities, but it's how hard you work and what you put into that. And I just like being reminded of this, and I'll talk a little bit more about why in the next slide, I believe, or the one after this. But she also found that grit can be learned and developed. And she also has, if you go to her website, there's actually like a grit scale that you can kind of like get a grit score. And I thought that this kind of went along well with Carol Dweck's growth mindset, right? Because if you believe that grit can be learned and developed, that's having a growth mindset about grit. That's having a growth mindset about this human characteristic or this personality trait that you want to have. And knowing that it can be developed, I think is very hopeful, where if you feel like, I don't think I'm like the grittiest person, I don't stick to things for that long, well, that's okay, because that can change. And some of the ways she talks about that is on the inside. So this is kind of like you personally cultivating your interests, developing habits of daily challenge exceeding skill practice. And that means challenging yourself. So doing something that's just outside your comfort zone, or just a little bit over that challenging mark, that so it's like hard for you to do, but you still feel good about doing it. Connecting work to a purpose beyond yourself. So again, that passion, that purpose. And so yeah, cultivating your interests, like finding what you're interested in. You can try different things. It's okay to try new things and find that you don't like something. That doesn't mean you're not gritty. So then there's on the outside is parents, coaches, teachers, bosses, mentors, and friends. So the culture of your community can help develop your grit, depending on what your expectations are. The language that your mentors and your coaches are using with you can also have a big impact. And so if there's a culture of grit in your team where you're expected to push through, you're expected to stay for the whole season. If you sign up in the beginning, you're expected to do these workouts, whatever it may be, like that's fostering your grit. That's like you're developing your grit. Sometimes you don't even know it, but you guys are. I'm sure in your sports and your athletic teams you are. And my third lesson on mindset is to really believe in yourself. And one big thing for me is don't let others talk become your own self-talk. And I was told by a coach my junior year of high school that I wasn't fast, and he made me feel like I could never play rugby at a high level because I wasn't fast enough. And I remember hearing that and it being like really disheartening, and thinking, okay, like rugby, I love it, but I can never play at the high level because I couldn't keep up. And that idea stuck in my head for a really, really long time, until I think the first time that, I mean, I've thought about it a lot, but the first time I really felt that I recognized that that thought wasn't my own was when I was doing like this thought coaching certification thing, and she was talking about, okay, think of a negative thought that you've had about yourself. Where did it come from? Find the root of that. And when I was thinking about it, I'm like, I'm not fast. I'm like, why do I think that? Oh, this coach told me in my junior year of high school that I wasn't fast. And that's then became my thought. And I tell myself, I'm not fast. Well, then I was like, okay, I need to change that thought because it's not mine. I don't, and that relates to this quote from Gary Mack in Mind Gym. He says, there are several unrealistic and irrational beliefs some athletes have about themselves. Some think they aren't big enough, strong enough, fast enough, or good enough to play at a certain level. My question to them is, where's the evidence? And his book also had a big impact on me in rethinking my thoughts and how I see myself as an athlete. And it just made me like totally change my opinion on myself and my speed, and knowing that I am fast and I have other strengths on the rugby field, and that speed doesn't determine whether I can play on the national team or not. I also had a coach tell me that if only I were faster and taller, I could be on the national team. And that's like, I can't do anything about my height. And there are people on the national team shorter than me. So basically letting other people's opinions be their own opinions and not adopting them as your own, because they don't need to be. And this is also very relevant with stereotyping, and recognizing that prejudice is someone else's view, and but knowing that you've put in that work and that you're doing everything that you can, and what you want can happen. Your dream can happen. You have to visualize it. You have to see it yourself. You have to believe in yourself. It doesn't matter if someone else makes a comment about if they think your dream is crazy or your goal is crazy. Like, you have to believe in yourself. And if you have that and you hold on to that, then that will help drive you towards that goal. And with that, I would say practice positive self-talk and affirmations. And something that was helpful for me was thinking, okay, what's a negative thought that I have, or a fear-based thought, or just some thought that I don't really like, but I have it. And you write that down, you evaluate it, you're like, where is this stemming from? And then you make another side where you put the positive affirmation side of that. So you flip that thought into positive. You make that in the present tense. You say, I am blank, I will blank. Just make yourself feel powerful and strong, because you are, and know that you can create your own reality, right? Like, if you want something, you can go out and get it. And there's going to be setbacks. There's going to be people who might not believe in you, but focus on those who do, and focus on believing in yourself strong enough that, you know, people around you will start to believe in you too. And something with that as well, positive self-talk. I know for me, like, it was my first game. It was my first national WPL championship. So when I played for New York, we made it to the championships. It was the semifinal for nationals, which is like pretty big for rugby in the US. And I knocked the ball on, which is in rugby, when you try, if you try to catch it and it goes forward, that's called a knock on. So, and then it's the other team's ball essentially. So I knocked the ball on the first play, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And I think to myself, like, I have a thought come in that's like, oh no, you're not going to have a good game. And then I was like, Dana, I talked to myself out there. I was like, Dana, nope, we're going to wipe that away. It happened. Like, let it go. It's in the past, and we're back. And the kickoff came to me again, and I caught it, and I ran up, and it was all okay. And I had a great game after that. But if you let yourself go down that path, and if you let yourself listen to that first initial voice that's like, uh-oh, or like, don't drop the ball, you want to look at where you want to go. So don't think to yourself, oh, what if I knock it on again? What if, some negative thought? There's that little, like, the little people on the side of the shoulders in the movies. There's that negative voice that likes to creep in and tell you to not do something, but you need to flip that around to the positive. What will I do? I'm going to catch this ball. And just letting go of those negative thoughts and bringing in those positive affirmations is very, very effective come game time and in your life, just in general. I'm just checking my notes to see if there's anything else so how that relates also to just your everyday life. You know those mornings where like you're spilling coffee, you stubbed your toe, there's just like things are not going well in your typical routine. This happened to me the other day where I was just like, I hit my toe so hard on the wall, and I was like, it's like this day is gonna be bad. And then I took a deep breath and I was like, okay, it's gonna be all right. And I was like, and I laughed at myself because I was like, it's gonna be okay. This is laughable. Like you're gonna think about this later, and it'll be okay. And just recognizing those negative thoughts and changing your attitude and your mindset to say, okay, we're going forward, we're going to push through today, and it's going to be a good day. So those are my 3 main mindset lessons for you guys that I find are very, very important in my life, and I like to remind myself of them. To nurture the growth mindset, to find your passion and persevere, which is be gritty, and remember that effort counts twice. And then thirdly, to believe in yourself. So those are my main things, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have, or comments or stories, whatever you want to share.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, so I think we've had a couple people kind of in and out, so we'll see if other people join because it's been, it's one of those Sundays. But if anybody has any questions, feel free to raise your hand or just type it out in chat. I know I had one question to kind of start us off. I was wondering, I guess, like, how can you as a teammate help if like one of your other teammates is kind of in that negative headspace, either in more like long term or just kind of in a game? Because I know I've kind of been in that situation where I've wanted to help kind of my teammates, but sometimes I just don't know the right way to go about it.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because I will say different teammates react differently to ways that you might encourage them, and some people really like that push that's like, come on, you're better than that, where some people need that like more nurturing, like, you're going to get the next one, let that go. And so I think knowing your teammates and what they respond best to is important for that. Me personally, I love to hear the nurturing, caring side that's like, let it go. What's next? And I think thinking, I just recently heard a podcast and it was like, okay, what next? So kind of just being able to let that, it happened, it's done, and kind of encouraging your teammate, like, what's next? Like, now what? We're going to move forward. Let it go. It's in the past. And I think in game time, the best thing to do is like a quick, pat on the back, like, let it go. It's over. Now what? Like, what are you going to do next about it? And so people have that switch in their brain that's like, okay, I can either dwell on that and be sad about my mistake, or I can play really well and just show everyone, like, why I'm here, show myself like that I'm a good player, and turn that around. So I think it's important to know your players, because I do have a teammate who, like, she's very driven by that harsher, like, you're better than that kind of thing, where like if I was told that, I'd be like, that. So it really depends on the player, but I think that's a good thing to be thinking about. It's a good question.
I had kind of another question as well, but if anybody, feel free to just interrupt me if anyone else has a question. So I guess, like, personally, I've been trying to figure out, like, I have these goals and I think I'm in a good mindset so far, and I want to keep that, of course. And I guess I'm just trying to figure out how I can kind of translate that into creating and finding more opportunities for myself. And I know that's kind of hard in COVID right now, where opportunities literally are just, there are less of them. But I guess I was wondering how these different factors of, like, having grit and nurturing this like growth mindset can kind of translate into finding new opportunities.
Yeah, so an activity that I think is helpful is having your goal, like writing down your goal on a piece of paper, and then drawing these arrows and just thinking of all the possible ways to get there and all the things that you can do as an individual to get there, different outlets. And this list is like you're brainstorming, right? So you're writing down everything possible, whether it seems probable or not. You're just writing it all out there so that you can kind of think of different creative outlets. I think that helps me stay motivated. And I also think thinking of like these tiny habits that you can get into that will then make a huge difference in the long run. So right now, being that there isn't many like opportunities at the high level or practices or games, focusing on your skills, focusing on your strength training, focusing on things that you can right now that you can do by yourself. Like you can get outside and throw a certain amount of passes per day, like, and you can start small with that goal. And the opportunities, if you keep grinding, will come. And especially that if you continue searching for them. So I also think making connections is a good one. If you're talking about rugby, which I assume you are, I would obviously be happy to talk to you about that and connect you with any opportunities that I know of for high schoolers. So making those connections, getting in tiny habits that will in the long run make a huge difference and have a huge impact. And yeah, just I also am a very visual person. I like having my goals up on my wall, like in my bedroom or somewhere where you're going to see them and remind yourself every day that that is what I want. And I'm going to do something tiny today to get there in the long run. So that's kind of my take on that. If anyone has anything to add, I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about it as well.
Oh, well, first off, just thank you. I think that's really good advice. And I know I haven't done it this year, but last year I set up kind of like a goal board that like just like 10 simple goals that I wanted to achieve kind of from 2019 to 2020, which was a little bit disappointing come 2020 because of everything that happened. But I think it did kind of help me with that mindset. So I think that's a good idea for me to kind of continue pushing it as well.
Yeah, and I totally even forgot to mention this. I did recently get contracted to play rugby in Spain. And with COVID, obviously that there's been like pushback of the start of the season, like questioning, like, is this even going to happen? Is the season going to happen? Is it going to be pushed back? So I'm kind of in the same weird like limbo situation where you're just kind of like unsure. There's a lot of uncertainty and, but I know that I'm doing the best that I can, and I'm still looking, you know, like if that doesn't happen, okay, what am I going to do? Like, I'm still going to keep doing my skills. I'm going to keep doing my fitness. And I think having like a mentor or someone to inspire you and just talk to you and keep you motivated, is really, really helpful. And that's helped me a lot, is having friends and having a mentor who I can talk to and I feel inspired by. Every time I get off the phone with that person, you know, I'm just like, okay, what am I doing today? Like, and you break down those big goals into smaller ones. And if something didn't happen when you thought it was going to, because of, you know, reasons that are not in your control, we control the controllables, right? So, okay, I'm not going to Spain, maybe, then now what? What do I want to do? What do I want to focus on? Where am I going to put my energy? And and just being ready to pivot at any time, because you never really know. There are things that you can't control, and you have to be okay with that and ready to pivot to something new. So it's a good mindset to have, but I understand right now it's a very interesting and different time than it typically is.
Actually, can I chime in here? I'm obviously Hallie's mom. So hi, everyone. I love these books. I'm a huge Carol Dweck fan, and I read The Growth Mindset a while back, so I know Hallie's heard it a lot. But it's also kind of a dense book, and these books often are. I actually listened to it on audio tape. So I was going to ask you how you read these books, and I maybe also suggest to folks that that's it's a good way to listen to it and not, sort of be mired down in the denseness, because Carol Dweck does also do a lot of, it's based in science. So she has great anecdotes because she uses that to teach, but sometimes she can get into, the science behind it, and it's a little bit dense. But so I was going to suggest that you listen to it on audio tape possibly. And then also you mentioned a podcast. I'm totally in love with podcasts. So if you have any to suggest.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, my dad is in leadership and culture shaping. So I kind of got my love for books from him. And I actually didn't always love books, to be honest. My mom bought me Mindset when I was in high school, and it's been on my bookshelf until I started reading it, like in the past 6 months. And so,
well, you don't read it till you need it, I think.
You're like, okay, Mom, sure, I'm gonna read this. And then I didn't read it. But now I know, like, I'm really interested in these books. So, and I actually did a book club with a friend. So we would read a chapter a week. So it's not too much. And it also keeps you accountable to read it, because I'm also known for not finishing reading books if I'm not interested in them. But this one I did actually find super, super interesting. And also talking about it and engaging with the material with someone who is like super awesome made it even more inspiring and made me learn even more from it than I would have reading it on my own, because you get to talk about it. And it sounds like super, I don't know, like I'm like, oh, I have my book club, so I can't hang out this morning because I have my scheduled book club. But if you do it with someone who you enjoy the company of, and you guys have like, it's really fun to hear their perspective of the content and how they took in like what they learned from it, like their life experiences and what they're relating it to. And I think personally, I'm terrible at listening to audiobooks because I need to like see it, and sometimes I'll have to like reread stuff because I have such a brain that just kind of bounces all over the place, and I like to sit and think about times that it's happened to me. So I'd have to be pausing the audiobook every like 10 seconds. But yeah, I'm really, really interested in mindset books, and I am reading like 5 different ones right now. So I just kind of love picking my favorite things from all of them and connecting them and sharing what I learned. But I also like Nike Trained, the podcast. I think they recently had a sports psychologist on that I really liked that episode. So I've listened to most of the Nike Trained podcasts. I would recommend them for sure. They talk a lot about mindset. Those are obviously my favorite episodes. I'm trying to think of some other ones, because I listen to like Rugby Bricks podcast, which is a rugby podcast that you might like. And yeah, I think that's really what I've been listening to. I'd share book names with you guys too if you're interested in those.
That would actually be awesome. I just started a book club with my school, like for athletes. So we had our first meeting actually just last Thursday, or not Thursday, Friday. And yeah, so we're trying to figure out books to read right now. And so we're starting with I think it's called Achieving Greatness or something like that. And so it's so far a pretty cool book, and it's about kind of like that mental aspect, which I feel like most of the books usually are, because I feel like that's, the best thing you can really write about with athletics. So I know I've really enjoyed it kind of for the reasons that you just said. So if you do have any other suggestions, that'd be awesome.
Well, Mind Gym by Gary Mack is like definitely a must read. You should definitely read that in book club. I've read it. I'm reading it for my 3rd time right now because it's got such great content, and he kind of like, it's short chapters too, which I like because I don't like a long chapter. I like to feel accomplished, so I like to finish a chapter, at least. But I really like that book. I think it's really awesome. And Mindset is like, those are my 2 favorite books right now. For sports, yeah, I'm about to read Relentless. I haven't started it yet though, really. So I can't tell you if it's good or not yet. But definitely Mind Gym is a big one. And I just started reading Tiny Habits, which is more just about how you can kind of train your brain to get into these tiny habits, and I like that one a lot as well, and that's helped me kind of reevaluate what I'm doing when something doesn't stick and like why it's not sticking, and knowing that it's okay that it's not sticking right now, that we just have to find something else that might work. And he does a good job of explaining his research to you about how to fit in those tiny habits, and how they'll make a big difference in the long run. Yeah.
Gotcha. Those sound really cool. I'll definitely check them out. So thank you. I've been taking notes throughout this, so I have, you know, like all the kind of list of books that I have to do now, but I'm very excited. Yeah, so I don't, you know, want to monopolize this conversation or anything like that. If anybody has any kind of questions or thoughts that they kind of wanted to get in. It's okay if not too. I didn't mean to pressure anybody. And this is actually, you know, feel free if something comes to mind, anyone feel free to interrupt me. This is usually about time where the meetings usually end up ending. So, you know, I'll kind of go through my thank yous and just kind of the plan for next week. But if anybody has any questions or thoughts, like don't be afraid to interrupt me. So first off, just thank you all so much for coming, and thank you, Dana, for taking the time out of your Sunday and just out of your week to speak to our group. And I know a lot of people couldn't make it today, so I'll be posting this on YouTube, and I'm sure I've gotten already a lot of notes saying that they're really excited to see the recording, so thank you so much for that. And then just so everyone knows, next Sunday at the same time at 2 o'clock, we are going to have another meeting with a professional fencer and coach. I believe he's based in California currently. He's really cool, and he's actually a friend of Sophia Panagrahi. If you know her, she goes to my school, for people that go to my school. So she gave that suggestion, and so we're really excited to have him. So I highly suggest coming next weekend at 2. Again, it'll be 2 o'clock p.m. EST. And yeah, so thank you all so much for being here. If you guys have any kind of closing thoughts, please don't be afraid to write it out in chat, or just, you know, unmute yourself. But yeah, thank you all so much for being here. I really appreciate it.